Good morning, students. So far we have studied inspection types, and in that we have studied raw material inspection. In that specific chapter, we are going to study 4-point fabric grading system. The 4-point fabric grading system, also called the American Apparel Manufacturers Association point grading system for determining fabric quality, is widely used by producers of apparel fabrics and by the Department of Defense in the United States, and is endorsed by the AAMA as well as the Textile and Needle Trades Division of the American Society for Quality Control. This is also an ASTM method D5432-07 standard test methods for visually inspecting and grading fabrics. So dear students, this is about the 4-point fabric grading system introduction. The 4-point fabric grading system, also called the American Apparel Manufacturers Association point grading system. So it is developed by American Apparel Manufacturers Association. It is devised by for determining fabric quality, and it is widely used by apparel fabric industries and also by Department of Defense in the United States. So this is about 4-point fabric grading system. So being used by Department of Defense is not a small thing. So Department of Defense will have a lot of priorities finding in devising the best suitable fabrics for the defense and army people. So Department of Defense in the United States is using 4-point fabric grading system, and so this is very important in that way. This fabric inspection system is widely used by the apparel manufacturers worldwide. In this inspection system, fabric flaws or defects are assigned point values based on the size of the defect as follows. So now I will read out a table for you. Please write down the table. On the left hand column, write down length of defect in fabric. In the bracket, either length or width. So length of defect in the fabric, that is on the left side column, and on the right side column, number of points allowed. So suppose the length of the defect is up to 75 mm, then number of points allowed is allotted is 1. So length of defect in the fabric, if it is up to 75 mm, then the number of points allotted is 1. And if the length of the defect in the fabric is over 75 mm up to 150 mm, then the number of points are 2. Similarly, if the length of the defect in the fabric is over 150 mm up to 230 mm, then the number of points allotted is 3. If the length of the defect in the fabric is over 230 mm, then number of points allotted is 4. So these are the 4 criteria on which the points allotted are 1, 2, 3, 4, and next coming one is on the left hand side, holes and openings. So in the garment industry we have holes and openings like button holes and all these things. So largest dimension. So holes and openings is the small heading, under that 75 or less. So if a hole is is equal to 75 or less, then 2 points are given, and if the hole is over 75 then the number of points allotted are 4. So what do we do these points? What do we do with these points? So for a fabric of specified width, there will be total number of points, and any good fabric should not cross the limit of the number of points, say 40 or 10 or 20. That depends on the each company. So now I will read out next one. The points allotted to fabrics are also called penalty points in the apparel industry. So we have allotted number of points 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, and these are also called as penalty points in the apparel industry. In the apparel industry it is called as penalty points. After the entire lot of a given style of fabric is inspected, all defect points are totaled and number of points per 100 square meters are calculated. So after the entire lot of a given style of fabric is inspected, so 1, 2, 3, 4 like that points are given, and after complete inspection, these points are penalty points are total, and the number of points per 100 square meters is calculated. So I will give you an example. Let us calculate defect points per 100 square meters where a fabric roll 120 meters long and 1.2 meters wide contains the following defects. So the fabric is 120 meters long and 1.2 meters wide, and it has defects like this: 2 defects up to 75 5 defects over 75 but less than 150 1 defect over 150 but less than 230 1 defect over 230 Total defect points. So how do we calculate the total defect points? First thing is, we have 2 defects up to 75 so that is 1 point is allotted, and there are 2 defects like that, so 2 into 1 is equal to 2 points. Similarly, 5 defects over 75 but less than 150 here penalty points are 2 and there are 5 defects like that, therefore 5 into 2 is equal to 10. And then next, 1 defect over 150 but less than 230 so that is only 1 defect is there for 3 points, and therefore 1 into 3 is equal to 3 points. Similarly, 1 defect over 230 1 into 4 is equal to 4 points. So total defect points are all put together 2 plus 10 plus 3 plus 4, that is 19 points. So points per 100 square meters are calculated. Here we have 1.2 into 120 square meters of fabric. So we will find out by calculating like this: points per 100 square meters is equal to total points scored in the roll divided by fabric width in meters into total meters inspected into 100. So total points scored in the roll here are 19 and fabric width is 1.2 meters and total meters inspected is 120. So that is equal to, if we substitute the values and do the calculation, we will get 19 divided by 1.2 into 120 multiplied by 100. That gives rise to 13.2 points per 100 square meters. So what does it mean? In the 100 square meters there are 13.2 penalty points on the total, including 2 defects, 5 defects and 1 defects of each defect range. So similarly, in another example, a fabric shipment of 1500 meters, 1 meter wide fabric was inspected using 4-point fabric grading system with the following results. So here is another example where the width of the fabric is 1 meter and the fabric is a fabric shipment is 1500 meters and the defects are calculated. So here we have, so please observe this, 50 defects up to 75 mm. So the length of the defect is 75 mm. So up to 75 mm there are 50 defects. So 1 penalty point for each, and therefore 50 into 1 is equal to 50 points. Second one is 15 defects over 75 mm but less than 150 mm. So here 15 defects are there and penalty points are 2 each, therefore 15 multiplied by 2, that is equal to 30 points. Third is 20 defects over 150 mm but less than 230 mm. So here we have 20 defects and each has then 3 penalty points. So as the defect size increases, penalty points increases. So defect size is less, then it is 1 point. If defect size is more, larger than 230 mm, it is 230 mm, then 4 points. So here 20 defects over 150 mm but less than 230 mm. So 3 defects, 3 penalty points each for 20 defects. Therefore 20 multiplied by 3 is equal to 60 points. Next one is 7 defects over 230 mm. So there the length of the defect is more than 230 mm. That means 2.3 centimeters length defect. Like that there are 7 defects. So therefore 7 into 4 is equal to 28 points. So total defect points are 168 points. So similarly, similarly as we have done in the previous example, now also we will calculate points per 100 square meters. That is equal to total points scored in the shipment divided by fabric width in meters into total meters inspected multiplied by 100. So that is equal to 168 divided by 1500 into 1 into 100. So that gives rise to 11.2 defect points per 100 square meters. So in the earlier examples we have got 13.2 points per 100 square meters penalty points, and here we got 11.2 defect points. There is no apparel industry standard as to how many points per 100 square meters constitute unacceptable quality. The general rule of thumb is that any fabric containing 33 points per 100 square meters or 100 points per square yard or more is considered seconds. So please understand, my dear students, general rule of thumb is 33 penalty points are allowed, and if per 100 square meters, then it is of okay quality, good quality, or 40 points per square yard. So 33 points per 100 square meters and 40 points per 100 square yard. Otherwise, if it reaches, instead of 33 points per 100 square meters, if for example if we get 38 points per 100 square meters, then the fabric is considered as seconds. Seconds means they will be there will be selling them at the cheaper price. They are seconds. It is totally open to negotiation between a seller and a buyer as to how many defect points per 100 square meters to accept or reject. This in turn depends on the price level of the fabric and the garment to be made from that fabric. A garment manufacturer, based on the price line and type of garments produced, may use more or less than 33 points per 100 square meters as an acceptable criteria. It is very important to let your fabric supplier know the acceptance criteria you use so that there won't be any surprises. So, number of defects per 100 square meters is negotiable between the seller and buyer. So generally accepted quality is 33 points per 100 square meters. Technology has great impact on what is possible today. For example, in the 1970s, it was acceptable to have 15 defects in 100 meters in the 100% cotton grey fabric. However, in the 1990s, the same fabric would be produced with only 5 or less defects per 100 meters. So this is the importance of technology and how technology revolutionized the quality in the industry. Following points about 4-point grading system are worthy of note. First point: the maximum number of defects points to be counted against any one linear meter is 4 points. Overall fabric quality is assessed on the basis of the number of defect points per 100 square meters of the fabric. So here he says the maximum number of defect points, penalty points are 4 only. So that is one point. Second point is the fabric is graded or assigned number of defect points regardless of the end product. However, a manufacturer may decide to use different point values or acceptance rejection criteria for different fabrics depending on the end item being manufactured. For example, acceptance rejection criteria of 33 points per square meter may be alright for fabric for men's casual trousers and sport shirts, but the same may not be adequate for fabric for men's suits. Different types of fabrics have different point levels of acceptability. Different types of fabrics have different points of levels of acceptability. These levels of acceptability are usually established by mutual agreement between the buyer and the seller. Unfortunately, there are no industry standards. So there is 33 is the generally accepted standard, but there are no industrial standards, and these points may vary depending on the fabric or product being produced. For a trousers or shirts, the points may be suitable, 33 points may be suitable, and for some other fabric it may not be suitable. So it depends on the seller and buyer to come to an agreement between the two and set the standards between the buyer and seller. A defect point in a 4-point fabric grading system is not a consistent unit of measure. For example, 4 points when representing slubs may affect no more than 10 centimeters of defect, but when representing a full width of defect in a 150 centimeter wide fabric, 4 points represent 150 centimeters of continuous defect. In the first case, a point represents 2.5 centimeters or less. So this system is not sensitive enough to regarding the fabric width. So that's what the author says. The 4-point system makes no provision for the probability of minor defects. So this 4-point grading system is useful only when the defect is 75 mm, up to 75 mm. But it makes no provision for the minor defects causing seconds or minor defects falling out on the cutting table, being lost in the fabrication or escaping scoring in the finished garment. There are defects accepted in inconspicuous areas of the first quality garments and rejected when found in conspicuous areas. There is no provision for this very influential factor. So this is one more important point. It makes no provision for probability of minor defects. Next point is there is no standard viewing condition for inspecting fabric. So the observer views the fabric at a distance. So for the inspection there is no standard viewing condition. So that's what it says. However, noted Granite Valley has experimented with the viewing distance as a guide to determining defects which have a garment defect potential. Granite will found that a 9 feet, that means 2.75 meters, viewing distance related to their experience in garment seconds. They do not score the defects that are visible at 3 feet but not at 9 feet. They only note such defects. In effect, this will only score major defects. Most systems suggest a 3 feet viewing distance. So, general viewing distance is 3 feet. So, general viewing distance is 3 feet. No industry standards or acceptable limits exist for shortage in the number of yards on a roll of fabric. Some companies allow only half yard shortage, some live with as much as 2 or 3% shortage, and some do not accept any shortage. It all depends on the business relationship between the seller and buyer, the price of the fabric, the end item to be made from that fabric, the reason, the season, the volume of the fabric shipment, etc. So these are some of the points to be noted for 4-point fabric inspection system. No industry standards or acceptable limits exist for shortage in the number of yards on a roll of fabric. So 7th point is there are no standard sampling plans used in the industry for the inspection of fabric or piece goods. So we have studied sampling systems, statistical sampling systems and arbitrary sampling systems. So here the author says there are no standard sampling plans used in the industry for the inspection of fabric or piece goods. Generally, if fabric is intended for an end item selling for more than $20, 100% inspection is done. If fabric is intended for an end item selling for less than $20, only 10% inspection is done. It is always better to perform 100% inspection of fabric shipments where there is no quality performance history about a supplier. Once a quality performance track record is established for various fabric suppliers, whether to inspect shipments from a given supplier or not can be decided on a case-by-case basis. Some manufacturers do not perform incoming fabric inspection but rely on their suppliers for such inspection. For example, Milliken, a fabric manufacturer in the USA, is delivering fabrics to Hager, an apparel manufacturer, which can go directly to the cutting table without inspection, with the defects already located and marked. So, dear students, please understand that 100% inspection is done on the fabrics, on the garments where where the cost of the garment is $20. And if the cost of the garment is less than $20, then sampling, 10% sampling is done. So that is sampling, 10% sampling is done. That is arbitrary sampling testing will be done. Inspection will be done. So suppose a new buyer or new seller comes. Suppose A is some company X is manufacturing fabrics and they are selling to Y factory or company. Then Y has no track record of the fabric manufacturer X. So in that case 100% inspection for all the shipments, for each lot, for each fabric is done, and once the track record of the seller of the fabric is maintained, then in that case there will be difference in whether to check 100% inspection or 10% inspection. So when a new company or when a new seller comes, it is better to go for 100% inspection, whereas make a track of it. So suppose some X company is maintaining good quality over 3 to 5 years, then for that company garment industry can make 10% sampling. Some companies carry out inspection with an inspection machine, whereas others carry out inspection when the fabric is spread for cutting on a cutting table. So inspection is done with the help of inspection machines, whereas in some other garment industries, the inspection is done when the fabric is spread for cutting on the cutting table. Good quality fabric manufacturers do tag defects and allow 1/8 yard credit for every 4 defect points. However, this practice is not universal, but even in case where supplier allows an adjustment fabric wasted in removal of defects, it costs manufacturer in terms of inspection and time lost in cutting around defects. So we are 4-point connection, 4-point fabric inspection, we are coming to an end. So please, these are the main points, and now we will study little more. Experience in fabric evaluation and good common sense are essential in making a judgment in fabric inspection, because one must always consider the likelihood that the irregularity of fabric defect will or will not cause an end item to be rejected. Making a set of photographs of fabric defects available to fabric inspector can remove subjectivity from scoring defects and help him score fabric defects effectively. So experience in fabric evaluation and good common sense are essential. So experience is important and common sense is also very important, and we should the fabric inspector should have photographs of the fabric defects so that he can compare and contrast the fabrics. So this is about 4-point inspection system. So I will summarize the topic one more time. The 4-point fabric grading system, it is also called as American Apparel Manufacturers Association, AAMA, American Apparel Manufacturers Association point grading system for determining fabric quality. So the 4-point grading system is designed and developed by American Association of American Apparel Manufacturers Association AMA. So is widely used by Department of Defense. So length of defect in the left column and number of points in the right column. So up to 75 mm, the length of defect I will read out first. Up to 75 mm, 75 to 150 mm, 150 to 230 mm, and more than 230 mm are respectively given penalty points 1, 2, 3 and 4. Suppose if the length of the defect is very high, more than 230 mm, then in that case 4 points are allotted. The general rule of thumb is that any fabric containing 33 points per 100 square meters or 40 points per square yard or more is considered seconds. So the total number of penalty points should not cross 33 points. If it crosses 33 points, then it is known as seconds. So in that case it will be stated as seconds. And I have told you 2 examples of the this thing 4-point system. And unfortunately there are no industry standards for 4-point system, and it is to be decided by seller and buyer. It is a negotiation between the seller and buyer to set standards for regarding the buying selling procedure of garments and fabrics. So, and I have read the 8 to 9 points about it, and this is about 4-point grading system. Similarly, this 4-point grading system is developed by AMA in AAME, American Apparel Manufacturers Association, in 1962. But they are looking at the industrial standards and models. This is again revised in 1971 by the same AMA, a American Apparel Manufacturers Association. So 4-point grade system is there are 2 steps in it. One is 1962 and the revised version is 1971. Similarly, we have Granite-Ville grading system and 10-point grading system and Dallas grading system. So these are the various grading systems that are observed in industry, and 4-point system is very famous. So these are the some of the important points we have studied. So this is in the we have come to this stage from how much to inspect. So how much do you want to inspect? Suppose if you are constructing a 2-bedroom flats for poor people in Telangana, then 100 houses are built. Then you check 100 buildings? Do you check 10% of buildings? Do you check spot checking? And that means random, 15 to 35, 49, like that. Or you don't check at all, no inspection, or statistical sampling. Arbitrary sampling is 10% sampling. 100% inspection is check every house and check that every house has all the commodities like water, resources, electricity and all these things. So 100% inspection, 0% inspection, 10% inspection, spot checking, and statistical sampling. So these are the 5 things, and from that we came to 4-point fabric grading system, which is talks about raw material inspection. So we have studied 4-point grading system in fabric inspection. In the fabric inspection of the under that heading we have studied fabric inspection. Under that heading we have studied 4-point fabric grading system. So this is so the final word I am talking about 4-point system is 4-point grading system is the general rule of thumb is that any fabric containing 33 points per 100 square meters is considered seconds. So this is about